Nav,
Cool.
you've built businesses, you're an acute investor, and you're an accountant. Why do you love money?
Ooh, wow. It's just a simple, straight question. Great question. I think it's not so much love money. It's the excitement of kind of growing something. Personally, I've come from a background where, I have a running joke with my wife that I don't know any kindergarten songs or any cartoons or anything like that. And the reason for that is when I was growing up from the age of 5, I've just been in my dad's shop. So I've always been surrounded by money or business or property, just constantly been in an environment where we're talking about those things. And then for me to sort of, get a bit older and realize that my dad did it from absolute nothing. His dad passed away at a very young age and built a very successful business in Kenya. And I sort of set myself a goal when I started my business that whatever he sort of achieved at the age of 60, I wanted to do it half the age because I had the luxury of education, Western world. He paid for my school while I was in school. Obviously uni, you've got your HECS and stuff like that, but I already had a head start. So for me, it was the passion in trying to outdo him. And that's always been like a mental race. I've been fortunate enough to successfully do that. And now I'm kind of going, all right, I've been able to do that. What's next? Now it's my own goal. Like if I was able to do it by 35, what can I achieve if over the next 30 years?
Why are we trying to outdo him?
Mainly because he did it from nothing, right? Like he absolutely, worked hard and built such a big business or set up his family. And for me, it was always kind of going, all right, well, this is how much he's been able to do over 60 years. Why can't I do it in 30? And it was just a competition. I'm a very competitive person, whether it's in sport or anything else. Yeah. It's always been about that competition. So it wasn't driven by money. It was just whether I can do it or can't do it.
And how did he groom you in terms of with money?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I sort of also tell a lot of other people is that it's the environment, and a lot of people don't talk about money, right? You don't talk to your mum and dad, or how much did you earn, or growing up, they never sort of told, this is the investments I did, this is how I bought it. I look back at it and I was lucky enough to be in that environment, constantly listening to them, whether it was working in his shop and, selling something for him, or listening to how he would talk to the accountant. Being constantly in that environment sort of helped me have a very positive relationship with money, not so much in terms of family, but with money, very strong relationship. Yeah.
That's very important. And would you groom your kids in a similar way, or you do things quite differently?
Yeah. So I think for my dad, it was a bit offsided. It was more like business and grow and stuff like that, not so much with family, or, you've got your traditional ways of how, how you are as a man in a house versus the woman in a house. So for me, it's ignoring those aspects and trying to sort of create like a balanced, slightly balanced, but still more weighted towards money and business than,
And in terms of like happiness and the role that plays, do you think money can buy happiness, or what role does it have in your happiness?
Well, if you're broke, would you be happy? Right? Like if you don't have any money, you have the struggle of, feeding your family or whatever else. So you need money to kind of have the luxuries in life, whether it is just as basic as a car or to be able to afford to buy food. So it does play a big part to it. And for someone like me who's been able to, pass a certain amount of income, it adds other complexities as to not really worrying about a holiday. Just those basic things, not worrying about, I want to go to Dubai for Christmas or something like that. People would think about that 2-3 times. So yes, you do need money to have certain aspects of life, but it comes down to your personal discipline as to how you treat that. Like you can become an idiot and blow money on useless things, or go the other way and start clubbing and do, benders, and forget your relationship. So kind of staying in a balanced sort of space.
I think it really is, it enhances who you are.
Yeah.
Like if you're a piece of shit, it will enhance you a piece of shit. If you're a good person, it will enhance you a good person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as you sort of start getting more money, it will obviously mean you have more responsibility. So even if you're a piece of shit, you might go, hang on, I don't want to lose this. So how do I, not be a piece of shit?
Yeah. And sometimes, but also brings power.
Yeah.
Which can, if someone's
Yeah,
value systems
100%.
aren't, yeah.
So it comes down to your core upbringing. So like for me, my parents were never someone who would take advantage of something. It was always very respectful on how they treated money as well. Like, if someone sees a $10 note and you walk over it, like for me, that would be forbidden. You can't do something like that. You kind of have to pick it up and, just respect money. So always being in that environment. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of your business journey, what is it about business that you love?
Again, competition.
Yeah.
Right. Like to be able to be the best, to be able to grow something 10 times, to be able to, just to say that you achieved something. So whether, why do you play sport? You play sport to be a winner, or why do you go to the gym to kind of look fit? Why do you build investment properties or something like that to kind of increase your wealth? To be able to be higher than someone or something. So it's always that competitive kind of
Or
niche.
with yourself or against others? If you had to pick one or the other against yourself.
100% me. Over time, you do... we're all human. You will kind of go, oh, fuck, this guy's doing this much.
Comparisons.
You do compare. Of course, even I do. Everyone does. Sometimes people use it in two ways. One is like feel jealous and beat yourself up about it, or kind of use it as ammunition.
Yeah.
And try to go, okay, well, he's doing that. Great. Good on him. Not easy to do, to say good on him. A lot of people just say good on him, but they're secretly going, nah, I hate that. Using that as a better fuel to kind of, grow.
Big time. And envy is not a good fuel.
Nah.
Inspiration is a good fuel.
Nah. And that's why, like, for me, one of the key things now is, as we're surrounded in a space where social media is big, right? You're always following people. You're looking at people who are doing 10 times you, or in a circle where, you tend to follow people who you want to you aspire to maybe. But nowadays, a lot of people are just following anyone. They see someone post about something about a car, follow. Someone's doing something well, follow. But not necessarily, and that's how you create envy, because you start going, hang on, what? So for me, one of the biggest things that I'm doing is every kind of once a month, going through my followers and deleting the things that I don't want to see, because it helps kind of like refocus on surrounding yourself. It's a new way of surrounding yourself by the values you want to grow by, right? Like, so if I'm going to keep following someone who maybe I do envy, just get rid of it, because there's no point. You may as well stay in your own lane. You know how to do it. I know how to do it, but sometimes that can be a distraction. Yeah.
And it can influence you and
other things. You may go buy something you don't need,
exactly
like
right.
you go
make a decision that you probably wouldn't have made.
That he would have made.
Yeah, that he would have made. Exactly right.
Exactly. So like that for me is like, okay, I don't want to do that. So start cutting it out. Yeah.
In terms of your business journey, tell us a little bit about it.
Cool. So accountant, as you said, I studied accounting in uni. Again, being always surrounded in a business. My school days when I was 14, I used to go to the local Inaloo shops, and I would buy phone cases from there and go back to school and sell them to students or people. So I was always been buying and selling kind of person. I then started importing fitness equipment from home. So I went to China with one of my best mates at the time, and did it from home at my mum's garage while I was still in uni. And then as I started working, slowly built it, never sort of needed to work at Coles or anything like that, because I was always buying and selling something. And that's how it kind of started. So I started from my mom's garage and was lucky enough to kind of keep growing it.
Do you prefer being in a business where you can flip it in the short to medium term, or prefer just focusing on one thing that you can just build over time?
Yeah. So I think we talked about it a couple of days ago, and that's been the big shift for me. So, and that's the learning between me and my dad, for example. Growing up, he's always like, buy more businesses, add businesses, which I did. I was in fitness. Then when F45 sort of first launched, I opened 6-7 studios, and I flipped them, made a lot of money at the time, and then kept buying or opening different types of businesses. I personally, at that time, thought it was the way to the future, or to become, more rich. But it's not, because now I stop and look back at how much time I can actually allocate to each of them, because nothing can work without you being 100% in it, or to a certain extent in it. So no, now for me the focus is just one thing. Yeah.
Just one core business.
Yeah.
And focusing around more investments.
Correct. So like you can still, so for example, when I say more businesses, if you do a startup, you have to be in it. You can't not be in it. Versus an investment into someone else's startup. So where you hold a small share in that business, you're not the person doing all the work, whereas that person might be the one driving that business, whereas you providing your guidance or the knowledge that you have, which is still for me an investment, not so much starting a new business.
Okay. And when going back to when you've bought those businesses and flipped them, they're 45s. What's your strategy when you look at a gym or a business, when you're going to flip it? What's your sort of mindset and approach, and when do you look to sell?
Obviously, it's all dependent on the profit. So once it's profitable to a certain amount and I'm happy with how much that multiplier is, so say generally people kind of look at a business value about 3 times the profit. So say if it's making 100 grand in profit, that'd be worth 300,000 plus stock, plant and whatever. So as long as I'm tripling my money, that's the kind of indication going, all right, it's now, I can use that money to buy something else or buy another investment. And that's the kind of thinking that you'd want to have. Yeah.
On a short term, yeah. And how long would you sort of allocate for something that you've got an intent of flipping?
If something's fully intended for flipping, no more than 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because otherwise your time is kind of just, you still have to keep working.
Of course, yeah. And takes away from your core business as well.
Because it will reach a point where, at the start it's kind of growing. And then it reaches a point where it kind of goes into a mode where you have to take it to another level, and that's before you get to that point, you sort of give it to someone else who can then take it to the next level.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think a lot of what I've learned in my journey as well, it's really about obviously systems and team training, recruitment, all those sort of things. So how have you developed a team in your core business over the years?
I think, now when we stop and look back at it, some of our key staff have been there since day one. So when I mean day one, 10 years now. So building the relationship with, and something that I sort of say to a lot of my staff, and when I was working as an accountant, I never worked for the accounting company. I worked for my manager. So whoever my direct manager was is the relationship I had with him. Amazing guy, helped mentor me. We went out on drinks on Friday nights, as you would do in a corporate life. And as he moved his job, so he left company A to company B, company C, he kept taking me along. So for me, it's the mindset of whoever in your team, they're going to work for me. They're not working for Flex. They're working for Nav because the relationship I built with them. So now as you grow your team and you have, now that person's no longer just your direct staff member, he might have 3 or 4 staff members, is to sort of educate them to build the same relationship with that person, because the third person is not working for me anymore. He cares about his direct manager. So building that relationship between them two is how you sort of keep growing. Because otherwise the respect for the companies is not there. Generally people kind of respect the person that they're working for, the manager, direct person that they see. And that's a very hard skill to teach someone to actually do.
Big time.
Yeah.
Definitely. And how do you sort of drive culture? I feel like culture is something that's a tool that you can use partly to help with that. How do you drive culture in your business? Yeah.
And I think, the number one thing is people over money, right? So no matter whatever I'm thinking, it's always been people over money. So whether like our Christmas parties are bonkers, at Flex, like we spend so much money.
Still waiting for you.
We spend so much money on them because I feel that's, those, as your team grows, those sort of events sort of help bond someone a little bit more. But the culture is purely that, and it goes by action. So COVID, for fitness equipment was a very busy period and a very scary period for a lot of people. When first COVID came out in March 2020, a lot of people were genuinely worried about their health and family. I had people who were elderly or had people who were living with their elderly parents. So for us as a fitness equipment store, to close all our stores, whereas other people still kept their stores open, was a very big decision. And the reason why we did that is to go, okay, we don't really care so much about our profits. We care about people and maybe, not getting affected. And as a result, we'll close it for the safety of them. And a lot of people sort of resonated with that. They accepted that. They said, oh, wow, that's a pretty big thing to kind of do. We shifted our whole business model to be more online focused through that next 12 months versus retail store focused. So, that appreciation and those sort of events help people kind of go, you know, he actually cares. It's not so much as, hey, here's a bonus, or hey, here's another, you know, a pay increase or something like that. It's just what are your actions? Yeah.
And people staff generally aren't motivated by money.
Nah, not well. Not
if
as
they are motivated by money. As soon as someone else offers them more money,
correct.
They're out the
Well,
door.
that's now, right? Over the last 2-3 years, where they can get a job anywhere. Previously, it was a bit difficult to get a job, and you know, a well-paying job. So that wasn't the concern so much. Now it is. Now anyone can. So that's why building the right culture is a big part to it. Yeah.
And retention's important as well.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
if I've had staff, like key staff, work there for 10 years, it would say something we would be doing right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And there's just so much intel that anyone has that's been with you for a few years, that and the cost of having to go out, find someone, retrain them, like just to actually do things right, to pay people a bit more, enough that's above what they would get probably elsewhere, where it's still good, but also
because if you want to grow, the only way you can grow is if your team grows. If they're getting paid more money, you will get paid more money, right? If they're not going to get paid more money, then you're not going to get paid more money. And yes, you can do everything if you want, but that's not physically possible. So if the minute I start earning more money, they need to start earning more money.
How do you cast your vision and your mission to the team?
Obviously, initially it was more hands-on. So, you know, you're working with them, you're there every day with them. They can feel your energy. You know, if you're there next to someone and sitting on the sales floor the whole day, or sitting in the warehouse all day, they can feel it. Now, as you're not in front of them that often, the only sort of way is, you know, regular meetings, regular catch-ups, team events and stuff like that. And what I like to do is I just take people out for a coffee. We'll just go for a coffee, just have a casual chat. Taking them out of that work environment is.
And they actually feel like they're a human.
Yeah.
As opposed to just part of the cog.
Yeah. And we're not, by no means I'm trying to say we're so big that, you know, my time is so important or anything like that. No. It's more, no matter what level, you generally find even top CEOs kind of doing things like that with their,
Definitely. In terms of with business, if you're talking to someone who's just starting a business, or they've got a business that's reasonable, struggling to reasonable, what are probably 5 lessons or bits of advice you would give them in terms of business fundamentals to be successful?
Yeah, I think these days the mindset's very different. People are very, I think it would come down to the age. So if you're 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, they all have different attributes to kind of, I would tell each of those person a different thing. So for me, like if you're in the 20s, for example, the mindset's always, like a lot of them are in hustle mode. They all want to make a lot of money, but they don't want to work. They don't want to put in those extra hours. Whereas the 30 to 40 kind of bandwidth, they actually don't mind putting the work. So yeah, it's slightly different. But I think the main thing is whenever you're starting a business, you have to do a lot of hours, because the wage cost of having someone else do that is going to kill the business. So you have to be willing to kind of do your 6 to 7 days. Before, when I was posting on my stories, you know, people laugh going, Nav, you say you're always working 7 days. And I worked 7 days for 7 years. And that was one of my main things. But it wasn't until 7 years is when I could have my weekends back. And after I passed that point, you know, now I'm a lot, you know, better, and you feel better because you sort of put in all that work. Now you can afford wages and you can afford staff. So that is number 1. Number 2 is understanding your numbers. A lot of people just go out and get an accountant, or go out and get a financial advisor, or get a bookkeeper to do their numbers. I feel one of the biggest things for my success is being able to know my numbers inside out. Whether it's like today I did $100 in sales, or tomorrow I did $300 in sales, constantly being aware of your numbers is key. Third is marketing. So for the first 3 years, me and my business partner, we didn't take a wage from the business. We were lucky to have worked externally, saved up enough money to forego the wages for the next 3 years, and invested every dollar back into marketing. Because if you don't do something like that, the business is not going to grow. If you start pulling money out, oh, I need to go to Bali, or I want to buy a car and I'll take the 10 grand out from the business, it's not going to happen. So you kind of have to be ready and have a little bit money saved up for at least a year, depending on how big you want to kind of grow. The fourth thing, again, as you said, team culture. As you grow, you know, sort of working on your core values. the last thing, the core kind of thing would be more around, just kind of constantly learning, right? As you sort of become routined into your business, you stop learning. You go through your uni, not that a uni degree is worth it or not, but you go through periods in your life where you're constantly learning. But then you reach a point where when you start working or you start running a business, you stop learning.
You get stuck in the business too much.
Yeah. And to kind of just, every year I sort of set myself a goal to kind of do 1 or 2 courses. So just constantly learning. Yeah.
Definitely. I 100% agree with all of them. It's funny how I've had people over the years, they'll go, oh shit, it's good you've got your own business, you can set your own hours. I'm like, there's 7 days.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And a lot of people don't understand it until they actually do it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And unless you're like willing just to eat shit for years.
Yeah. But that's also, that's what I'm saying. It's the type of age. So like, depending on the person that you talk to, some people will agree with you and some people will just say, nah, how can that be possible? You just have staff doing it, but you don't actually know what the cost is for all those things. Yeah.
The cost, no, definitely. And these days things are getting more and more expensive. So you have to get more and more. Your business acumen's got to get better and better, and your product's got to be better than ever. Yeah.
And I feel, yes, a certain aspect of that, but I think it's just constantly, as things, things are going to get expensive now, they're going to get cheaper later, it's just if we kind of keep focusing on that, or focus on the fact that if we just know our numbers, if we know this is what our bottom line is, this is what we need to do to spend in ads, or that's just kind of the main thing that will help.
Okay. And obviously there are 2 different types of businesses, obviously owner operator or professionally managed businesses. So how do a lot of people who are owner operators who have that goal, they've got like a reasonable business, they're owner operator, but they want to get out of the business, but they feel trapped.
Yeah.
What would you say are the vehicles that they can do, or things they can implement within their business to start to remove themselves from being within the business and taking more of a bird's eye view?
Well, I'd firstly ask them why. What else are you going to do? Right? So like, if you're going to start thinking you're going to take your time out and build another business, or you're going to take your time out and just go have a holiday and not work, I don't think that's the answer. So a lot of people might actually say, I want to build something else. I want to, and for me, I don't look at it that way. I don't look at me coming out and looking at it on top, because I look at it as long as I'm running it, unless I've sold it, I want to be in it.
But what does running it look like for you at the moment?
So for example, maybe 20, 30 hours a week, constant meetings with the key people in the organization, or the staff, or the salespeople, just being in touch.
More CEO leadership.
Yeah, like just to constantly being in touch. Not so much like, hey, I'll come once a month. When you come back once a month or once every 3 months, you don't necessarily know what's going on. You can't help.
Okay.
At the end of the day, they kind of also look for that leadership. Yes, you might have the right people in play, but I feel like, based on, depending on the size, obviously you have mega businesses, which is not me, but your normal medium-sized business, small to medium, if you're not in it, it's going to be kind of hard and tricky to kind of leave it and expect it to still keep making the same money.
Yeah, when I was saying more probably owner operator, I meant more in terms of they're really heavily involved into day-to-day runnings, as opposed to purely more like leadership level. Still obviously involved, but that have their other people like managers and teams in there. Like someone who's literally, for example, in your business, they'd be on the floor doing stuff. Or like, me with my chiropractic practice, literally having to see all the clients, as opposed to being more like training and being part of the culture and keeping
so obviously for that, the only way you'll be able to do that is grow the business. The business has to grow to a point where it can afford them and you sitting at top.
Correct.
If they can't afford that, then it's hard. And the challenge obviously is like, how do you grow the business, right? How do you grow to that level? And some cases it might be more marketing spend, or more studios, or more shops, or
systems being spot on.
Yeah.
And as you said, like reporting is a big one, because if your reporting's fucked, like when you're a small owner operator, you can get away with reporting not being that good in terms of not knowing all your numbers as well. But as soon as you start adding more pieces in, getting bigger, removing yourself from those duties and doing other duties, that's when you get exposed.
Yeah, well, that's it. And like that's why it's important to always be connected to the business to a certain level. No,
definitely. Yeah, it'd be hard to have a place where, especially when you're the founder,
Yeah.
as well, because you run so much of the energy and the culture of the place.
Correct.
Yeah, and if you remove that person for an extended period of time, you got to have like unbelievable culture.
Yeah. So like, for example, me, you know, if I was to say, okay, how can I remove myself from the main business? The only way I can see it is if I have something else that's more interesting to me, or I can put the right person in my place. So there's no real saving. The costs will still be the same. There's not that much extra profit. It's just you've chosen to do something, whether it is to do nothing or to make more money. Yeah.
If you gave it, put yourself, how old are you? You're
36.
36, okay. Say if you're talking to the 18-year-old Nav,
Yeah.
how would you, what advice would you give him now?
Nothing. Just, fuck, you did awesome. Yeah, like that's the main thing, because if I sort of say I should have done this is no point, but I think he killed it, because I think the 36-year-old now is kind of going, shit, I wish I was still the 18-year-old now. Yeah. Because some of the drive, some of all of that kind of stuff's, you know, going away, but the drive for the 18-year-old one was way hungrier than the 36-year-old one. So yeah, nothing.
What do you reckon is going to keep you hungry into your 50s and maybe 60s?
I think the key thing is to really redefine your goals, what you want, how you want it. So for me, it's just constantly analyzing what is it that I really want to do, how do I want to grow, and for me, the thing that kind of keeps coming back is that I want to be the biggest fitness equipment retailer in Australia, if not worldwide. So if that's the kind of goal, how do I still keep kind of channeling that?
Is that what you want to do?
Oh yeah, 100%. So like Flex is already in, we're in Australia, we're in New Zealand already for the last 2-3 years. We're waiting for our trademarks to be approved in US and hopefully sort of transition there. So that's the goal. It's no longer financially driven. Now it's just an ambition to kind of say, oh, we did that. We went from a small garage kind of gym to be able to be worldwide and to actually make it work, not just do nothing and kind of actually make it financially work. That's the kind of goal. It's more like, I want to get an A. I've always been like an academic student. It's just like saying getting an A in your uni degree. So for me, it's like, how do I get that?
It's the competitive side. And
the
achievement. I get it.
Yeah.
In terms of like, as I said, you were heavily business. If you want to build your net worth, just start another business. And you were saying that you've transitioned into now understanding more. It's the investment acumen that you've developed. What have you done to develop your investment acumen?
Yeah. So like these days, there's so many people who talk about finance and talk about business on social media and stuff like that. So for me, I wish there was something like that in my 20s where you could listen to people saying, stick to one lane and focus on that. So for me, that would have been the best sort of advice. Obviously very hard to do when you're in a fire mode and you're just going, I want to take over. But yeah, so it's more so to kind of, drive a bit more that.
Okay. If in terms of some general advice, the office is just in general, say if someone had really good income, whether it's from business or they're a salesperson or working in the mines, say if they're on 200, 300, 400, 500K a year, but they didn't have great investment acumen.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly right. So they're making great money and they should be building really good net worth, but they don't have the investment acumen and know what to do with that money that they're generating. Yeah. How would you sort of guide someone in that position? Yeah,
I truly feel that people just pay someone. When you start getting that money, you start paying an accountant, you start paying a financial advisor, you pay a lawyer or pay someone. I feel people need to stop doing that. They need to start self-educating, pay whatever they are. Yes, you still need those people, but they're not going to necessarily, you can't go to an accountant and say, how do I pay less tax? Like properly, they're not going to answer it, right? They're just going to go, oh, you need to do this and this, but it's not, there is other ways that you only learn through networking, through meeting new people, through asking other business owners, how did you get around this? So for me, there's one, like networking, and two, it's really researching. And, now you have people like me, follow me. It's more like following the right people who have done it and are willing to give free advice. The more you learn around tax. So for me, there's two ways to make more money. One, you make more money by either getting a pay rise or pay less tax. There's only two. And it's way easier to pay less tax than to make more money, right? Because to make more money, you have to somehow get a bigger job or start a new company or take more risk. Pay less tax, all it is education, right? Like, how do I learn to pay less tax? And there's so many ways.
Go through a few of them. You're an accountant.
Yeah. Well,
say if you've got a business and you're in that position, you're making profit 300 to 500K a year profit, or even whatever, up to 7 figures, and you're like, I want to start paying less tax.
Everyone's quite unique,
Correct.
But I think some of the little ways that are quite common to some people. Some people may know it, some people may not know it. Obviously, setting up a trust is just like the most basic form of accounting. So rather than, if you have a business that's making $500,000 of profit, you definitely want to have a trust, which is basically a company that sits on top of a trust sits on top of your company, and you can distribute the profits out. That can go to your mom, your auntie, your daughter, or whoever else, to sort of reduce the tax. That's like, people think that that's an advanced thing, but it's the most basic sort of accounting. After that, you've got expensing out certain things like vehicles. Through COVID, people had a lot of opportunity to write off assets. They could purchase up to $150,000 worth of assets to write them off through the business. Simple ways like that. Just constantly kind of researching what's happening in that space. You've got your companies, you've got your individuals who are earning $200,000-300,000, whether it is to actually use the equity out of a house that you're living in or your own, to buy an investment property, because you can have the negative gearing side to it, depreciation based on the building and how much it's worth. So to be able to keep reducing your tax, it's not hard. It's hard for example, you can't really go to an accountant and say, can I write off this vehicle this financial year and sell it the next financial year, to delay my tax burden from this year to next year. They're not going to say, yeah, Nav, go ahead and do it. But if you're sort of aware that that's what people are kind of doing, then you probably will do something like that. So you pay less tax in this financial year. Yes, you might have to pay next tax in the next financial year. But if you sort of keep rethinking how do you minimize it the following year, you might come up with another way to do it.
Okay. If you're sole owner and you have sole equity in the company, do you feel if you don't need to pull a salary, you're best just leave the money in the company and not pull a salary?
So the company, a company has a flat rate of about 27 whatever percent. Yeah. So if you're going to earn more than $150,000, you probably pay more tax by drawing a wage. So yes, to a certain extent, it's then removed as drawings rather than as wages. Because when you do wages, you got to pay yourself super, which is probably not a bad thing. And you also pay your PAYG tax through that. But a better way is to, have it profit, and then you pay the tax on the profit.
Let's get
distribution out. And then because you've paid tax on it, depending if you're just able to keep it under the tax threshold and you divide it over 5 people, you might actually get that tax refunded back. An interesting thing, don't quote me on this, is people are actually doing, like for me, the next kind of way is Dubai, for example. Dubai is like the innovator, lots of things happening, influencers, it's very buzzing. It used to be like how Singapore used to be. People used to go to Singapore a lot. But Dubai, for example, now is tax-free, or, they're introducing some new rules. But what if you were to set up a company that is sort of invoicing, for example, for you, invoicing your marketing expense there to sort of reduce your expense here, shifting it to Dubai where you pay no tax, your profit here is 0 because you moved your money there. What about that? So for me, that's very interesting as to people are doing that. So learning more on how are they doing it, what are the risks, how do you manage that sort of situation? Will it work for me? Would it not work for me? And sort of applying that.
Can someone in Australia set up a company in Dubai for the majority of the time they live in Australia?
Yeah. So for example, Dubai, it would come down to your tax resident. You would have a tax residency here. To become a tax resident, to open a company there, you need to be a resident there. Firstly, I don't know too much about it. It's an area that I'm trying to also look into, but you can open a company there. All you have to do is stay there for 2 weeks, for example, and fly once every 6 months or a year to maintain that company tax-free. So imagine if you made $500,000 and you paid $300,000 or $100,000 in tax, and you pay 0 tax because all the money's gone there. So you just have no tax. So just those little things that can already make you $100,000 richer
annually.
Yeah, and you're already paying it, so it's not like there's no change. You didn't have to earn any more money. So just constantly researching, talking to people. So for me, one of my big things over the last 2 years, I've always been an introvert, so I just keep to myself. 7 days, 7 years in a friggin' office in Wangara, and didn't do anything else. Didn't meet any new people. And we reached a plateau where you're kind of flatlining. You're going, what's next? How do I change? And over the last years, I have put myself out there trying to meet a lot more people, and these ideas are just flowing, right? Like, you know, the thing is that sometimes, you know, we talked about it earlier, people don't want to openly talk about it. Push them. What's going to stop you? Like, you know, hey, can you tell me why you did this? How did you do it? Might not want to say it now, but over a couple of days he will. Or a couple more meets he will.
It's amazing how
and if he doesn't,
people will. Most people will. And if they don't...
Some people might, some people not.
Yeah.
But like, if he doesn't, then you know what kind of person he is. Right? He's that kind of person.
Yeah.
What a dickhead. Like, you know,
exactly. Especially when it's...
You don't want to help someone.
Not direct competition.
Yeah.
It's not like sensitive information. You know,
why not help someone?
100%.
You know, like, for example, there was a period where Rolex watches were booming, right? And people were flipping them. And I would always wonder, why is this idiot buying a Rolex watch? What a waste of money. Like, why are you buying a watch, which is $50,000 to put on your wrist? Why? But mate, they went up like 20, 30%. That's why he bought it. No one said, hey, Nav, you should buy one as an investment, right? Because why? They just want to keep, certain people just want to keep certain things to themselves. Yes, you can, you know, the more you peak, you might find people who will give you and share that information.
In terms of, yeah, it was interesting you just take it back before how you were saying in terms of self-educated versus having like a financial team. So this is one of those things, what would your recommendation be in terms of what people do you want in your financial team?
So you always need a bookkeeper. And you always need an accountant, right? But the difference is that, like, I'm not saying don't have an accountant, don't have a bookkeeper, do everything yourself. If you know what to ask them and to always challenge them, that's the key, right? So they are still there. You can't be doing everything, you know, you have to have those people in place. But if you're constantly asking them, hey, what about this Dubai company? Why can't I do it? You're paying them. Let them tell you. Or like, hey, I heard this from a mate who's done this with a car. Can you tell me more about it? How do I get around it? So if they, as you know, like, not many accountants are just going to say, hey, this is how you write it off properly. This is what you need to do. They're not, you know, it's very rigid. They're obviously
not as proactive.
Nah.
As well, yeah.
So for me, it's more like if you keep flowing the ideas through to them, yeah, you still need those people, but it's now your education to stay in front of them.
In terms, do you think a financial advisor is a good investment?
I've never used one. I think depends, right? Like, if you've got $1 million, then you sort of want the advice, and it doesn't cost much for the advice. Like, for example, it might be $1,000 to get a whole paper written up on how you should invest that. Now, the way I look at it is, I'll pay someone $1,000 to learn what he said, but I'll ask 10 other people on similar sort of topics to then make my own decision on how to do it. So yes, to a certain extent you need them because they might have more knowledge and they've, you know, obviously in the industry learning all the time. So it's just paying someone for their experience. I probably wouldn't give them the $1 million. I'll try to get as much information out.
Okay. Yeah. And in terms of picking like an expert, back to what we were saying, there's so many people who have big channels and online on Instagram, YouTube, and there is a lot of but there's a lot of people who might not have the credibility. Yeah. How do you pick someone who's authentic and actually knows what they're talking about?
Well, you can follow everyone and anyone, but the thing is that you whatever you take and you learn from 10 different people, you still need to go to a professional and run it through to your own personal situation. So that's what I mean, is constantly learning, constantly taking in. I wouldn't necessarily limit myself to someone. People come up on my feed all the time. I'll listen to it. I'll think about it. If it makes no sense, I'll ignore it. But if it does, to even the slightest amount, I will reach out to my accountant or my bookkeeper or someone, just ask those questions, or to a friend who might have done something similar. What do you think? And the more you talk about that topic, the more you talk about money, the more you talk about money at home, the more you talk about money at work, the more you talk about money with other people. That's the only way you kind of, grow. The more you see money, people don't even check their bank accounts. Like, I look at my bank account very regularly. Like, two people don't know what they spent last weekend. So for me, like, having that knowledge, not to be petty, but just to kind of watch it, like going,
accountability.
Okay, yeah. Like, if you're seeing it's gone like from 10,000 to 2,000 and you spend $6,000 at Louis, right? then you kind of go like, what's
changed my ways.
Then you kind of go, what's happened? Like, those kinds of things.
Yeah. In terms of just pivoting a bit to the actual housing market.
Yeah.
So for you, do you feel like it's a better time to rent or buy?
Whether to rent or buy, right? The biggest question is whether you can afford to do either. So to rent, at the end of the day, all they need to qualify you is 2 or 3 months worth of pay slips, and your income just needs to be able to service. Say, for example, if you're earning, I don't know, say if you want to rent something that's worth $2,000 or want to buy something that's worth $2,000 a month in terms of the mortgage repayment, the way they qualify you for both is slightly different. So the way for rent is normally 2.5 times the rent. So if you can afford that, they'll give you the property quite easily. Whereas for a mortgage, it's based on, your serviceability. So they're divided by 0.4% to kind of understand, that's like the debt to income ratio, to go, okay, how much of your income should go to your mortgage and how much of a percentage is that? What I find in the current market is that you can't afford, because of the serviceability, you can't afford much house because of how crazy the interest rates are. So you're not really getting the same kind of house as you are for $2,000 a month. So $2,000 mortgage is going to get you a crap house somewhere in the middle of nowhere, whereas $2,000 might get you a decent sort of house to rent. So one is lifestyle. So whether you want to live out there or you want to live in the city, personally, I feel it's better to rent for $2,000, live where you actually like living, but invest so that you're investing in those areas and they're kind of growing because you can afford to sort of invest in that area. You can't afford to necessarily live in this area. So yeah.
What's a asset that sort of gets you excited at the moment?
At the moment, it's just property. Property is I like things which are tangible. I can see whether it's a business or investment into another business or property. I'm personally not a Bitcoin or any sort of, I don't even invest too much in shares either, but more tangible stuff. So property, why? Because people can say the same thing about shares. They've kind of always kind of gone up. But the biggest thing with property is leverage. I love the bank and their bank's money. I try to use as little of my own money and I use more of my bank's money. To buy shares or any other sort of things, whatever you invest, you only get the return on that much. So if you invest $10,000, you'll get 6% of that, I don't know, $600. You put $10,000 or, obviously leverage to buy a property, you get exposure to the full amount. And these days, with first homeowners, they can get into a property with only 5% deposit, which on a $500,000 house is, only, yeah. So it's better to do putting that $25,000 into a property versus that $25,000 into shares, which is only going to go up to $26,000 versus that. Yeah.
Makes sense. What's the 60-20-20 method?
Yeah, so that's like a budgeting thing that a lot of people use. So it's kind of, a lot of influencers talk about it. It's especially during this moment where you've got like a big cost of living crisis and people can't really afford anything. 60% of your income, so your take home pay, 60% goes into your wants, which are, goes into your, so 60% would go into your needs, which is, rent, electricity, groceries, insurances, and all those kinds of things. So 60% of your income goes to that. You'd sort of allocate that. 20% goes to your wants, which would be more like, going out or
lifestyle,
so going to Louis Vuitton if you can within the 20%, or the last 20% being...
You got me wrong now.
Come on. I saw you changed your top today. Normally it's Prada and LV.
Here we go.
But it's...
I'm a new man in 24.
Yeah, you're talking to finance with that. I'm going to watch all these things. And 20% being saved, right? So that's how you should sort of look at it. 60% towards the things that you really have to spend your money on, 20% towards that you sort of want to splurge on, and 20% again to be saved. That's generally the way I see it, is on people who are kind of, especially during the current time when you're earning over 100 grand a year. Normally, as the higher you go up, you sort of go to the 50, 30, 20 rule. So 50% going towards that. So a bit less than the other category. 30% allowing you to spend a bit more because your lifestyle's kind of grown as well. And again, 20% still staying towards your savings. Another thing around savings is a lot of people, probably common knowledge, but save first and then spend all this stuff later. So as you get your pay, you sort of put that money into a savings account first before kind of going, okay, what's left? Rather than doing that, you kind of, yeah.
Definitely. And what are sort of the fundamentals in investing that you would sort of recommend to people? Because you have a preference for property. Where's a good place to start?
Yeah. See, to get to that point, you have to save.
Yeah, correct.
So the first thing is to budget. Like it's very important to start budgeting. I, thankfully enough on a decent sort of salary or income, whatever, I still budget every month. I sit down and kind of look at what my expenses are, what my income is, where am I saving, how much did I save this month. If I don't have that habit, that's how lifestyle creep comes in and you start spending more than you sort of earn. But yeah, the first step is to save, start working towards building an emergency fund, which a lot of people don't do or don't think about. An emergency fund is basically something 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses. So if you can sort of save that much, so how you work out what your monthly expenses are is by doing a budget. So I go, okay, my wants and my needs are roughly $4,000 a month. So I need to have 4 times 6 saved in my bank account before I can even think of doing any sort of investment, because you want to have that financial you don't want to be worried about investing into something if you don't have any money because you're not saved anything. So once you have that security net, the next thing is to kind of go, okay, I've saved that much money, my emergency fund. The next thing is to go, okay, now I need to start saving for a house. So that's the next level, start building. How much is the house worth? I need to save 50K, by following strict sort of budgeting goals, you get to that level. And as I said, so you have to start getting smarter with your money. If you can't increase your money or your income, how do I save? How do I pay less tax? All those things. Once you've saved the money to buy your investment property, the next step is, okay, cool, you've successfully bought either a house or an investment property. The next is, okay, I want to buy another one. How do I buy another one? The common ways to obviously with time, as time's kind of going, you're saving more. Your current property is building its equity. So, as the property prices kind of go up, you can pull out some of that money to buy as a deposit for another property. And those are some of the simple ways. A lot of people also these days invest in ETFs, which is exchange traded funds. And I think a lot of the 18 to 25-year-olds are in it, like even way more than when we were probably out. We were probably smashing it all on alcohol or something like that. I'm surprised how many 18 to 20-year-old people are actually putting money into ETFs. It blows my mind. There's so many of them. And what an ETF is basically a basket of shares that combines the top 200 companies in Australia or top 500 companies in US. And you don't have to put much money. You can put $50 a month or $100 a month. And between 18 to 65, that can compound to like crazy amount of money. If you're doing it from 18 versus if you're going to start at 35, very different. So someone who's 35, I think it's a bit late to start putting it into ETFs. You should have a good amount saved. If you don't, then that's a whole other topic. But you should have at least, the way I see it is anyone who's 35 should have at least 50 to 100K in their bank account. If you don't, you need to start sitting down on the drawing board and going, what did I do wrong? How can I change it so that the next 10 years you're not sort of sitting in that same spot? Definitely.
And what's probably one investment that went wrong for you that you've learned the most?
Fuck, what? Many.
What's the one that sticks out?
Mate, food trucks. Fucking.
What happened?
Worst thing ever. You're out on a birthday night and you decide, someone says, oh mate, I'm making so much cash like on a food truck.
Kebab was good.
I'm like, sweet, no worries. How much is it? I make, whatever it is. And did you want to buy my food truck? Yeah, no worries. Sounds like a great idea, but it works for him. That's what I'm saying. If we are a herd and just follow what other people are doing, it's not going to work. It might work for him. Hence why cutting your socials and cutting the people that you surround yourself with, the vision you want to see yourself as. So for me, I'm trying to copy what he's doing. Why? It works really well for him. It doesn't work for me. He can't operate a fitness equipment business. So for me, that was the big one. Put so many hours in it. The staff that I had was just horrendous. I really learned that from that experience that one, I can't be everywhere at every time. And I sort of need to stop rushing into things, right? You don't just go, hey, this guy said buy this share and go buy it. Or this guy said invest in or buy this truck and buy it. I was for a very, very long time that kind of person. Buy this Nav, yeah, sure, I'll make it work. Because you're so confident in yourself as a person, as a business operator, that you'll make anything work. And you only learn later that you can't do it. No matter how hard you try. You sort of have to have, and big guys out there, some big brands, big names, kind of always, Elon Musk, whoever, they kind of have one main thing that drives them. Yes, they might have so many investments, but those investments are investments into property, shares, whatever. They're not investments with their own time. They're not sitting in that office doing work. Yeah,
definitely. And what business sort of industries or what potential opportunities excite you the most moving forward?
I think at this stage, it's more, if you've got something that's kind of working, build on that. Property investment, that's one. Business, it's hard. It's like, there's so many new things kind of coming out. So unless you're always in tune with it, what I feel people should, if you've got enough money, and there's two types of bracket. One, someone who's saving, or three, someone who's saving to buy a house, someone who's saving to buy another investment property, someone's got enough money and they've got enough properties and they sort of now have a very good business that they're running and they're going, what's next? Like, I'm hungry, what more? I really think the future is now into investing into startups, right? Like I'm starting to do that. You see someone who's a good operator who knows his head, doing everything right, to sort of back them, whether it is one or two people. I currently am doing that in about 6 different companies, and my time is not there. I don't have to physically be there. All I have to do is help this person excel doing what they love doing, not necessarily what I love doing. But for me, the back end is the return.
Definitely. And to be able to be at that level, you got to have the runs on the board and business acumen and be able to assess things properly.
Yeah,
so for most people, wouldn't be able to do option 3
No.
until they've actually quite experienced.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Or it could be, you could break it down to as simple as you've heard a mate opening a business. You really think he's a good hard worker. Just ask him, hey, did you want 50 grand or 10 grand to give me a small share in that business if you believe in that person?
Okay, well, what's the criteria? This is an interesting one because often you know what you're doing in business. If you have two, like a guy who's got a mining guy or whoever, someone's got a bit of extra money, and you have another bloke that's like, oh, look, I want to start a business, and neither of them have like amazing business acumen, but they just have a bit of money and a dream.
Yeah, but this is the thing. It's like, can he actually do it, or is he talking shit? So first is to read that person out. You're an idiot, mate. Just don't do this. Or, mate, this guy has a solid thing. He's already. For me, it's always someone who started something.
Oh, great.
I don't think it's someone who's just got an idea.
You got to have evidence that you've actually succeeded.
You've started, you've opened something small, whether it's just an Instagram page as an example. Like, if someone, for example, has started an Instagram page, they're talking about X, and they needed a bit more money to make their videos better quality or whatever, to kind of go, hey.
Yourself now.
It doesn't.
Look, the videos are doing well, man. They're doing well.
Mate,
it's about the content. It's not about the production.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it cost me nothing. Man, you need to look at your stuff. But for me, it's more just like, if someone say, exactly, perfect. You came and said, hey, Nav, here's 50K. Whatever future income you make from your thing, I want a small share of it. Yeah, maybe, those kinds of things. But the person has to be worth it.
Definitely. I feel like that goes back to what you said about networking.
Yeah.
And I've been in a similar position to probably yourself, probably a few years ago. They just focusing and just went all in on one thing and really cut a lot of things out. And I'm in a similar space at the moment going, no, I'm ready to dial back on my main business and get other people in and start to network and this is a good opportunity to do that.
Well, this is the thing, like, as business owners, you have to network. Even as corporate jobs, we still have to network, because if you don't network, you're not going up that ladder. You're just going to stay down there. Yeah. You look at government, for example. I used to work at Department of Finance. Clear example. I did not network. I did not like it. So I didn't talk to anyone. Like, I just did my own thing. I actually run my own side business while I was working there. They fired me. That's a whole other story. But because I didn't network, I didn't move up. Whereas now when I stop not now, even when you look at people who are excelling in that field, whether they're moving up as DG or a senior role within the department, they know the next person up, and they are, bonding, they're making those connections. So whatever you do in life, you need to network. You look at my wife, networking as little as even through parents groups, like, meeting new parents so your kids have good friends. Like, it's crazy because she has to spend the time networking with other mums to have good friends and a good environment for our children. So no matter where you look at it, you kind of have to do it. And if you're just going to stay in your little bubble, it's not going to work.
Where have you got the most value? What sort of networks? Because a lot of people will hear stuff like that, but they wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah.
In terms of networking with people that would actually provide value.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is obviously through your friend circle. So for me, I have my closest friends. I love them. We're called the Monday Regulars. Look us up on Instagram. But for me, it's more the close group of friends and their networks first. Right. So it's only like if I introduce you, would probably, the chances of you introducing me to someone is higher than some random person introducing me to someone else. Right. friends. So first tap into your friend sort of area. If he knows someone else, try to keep going to those events that they're holding or functions or whatever it may be. Then you've got your workmates, the people at work. They might know someone around there, always talking to your manager, talking to the next person up. We've got it right in front of us. We just don't do it. We're scared, or we're lazy, or we don't want to get out of our comfort zone to go talk to our manager's manager. Just go say hi, talk to him, become that friendly face. Then you've got the whole external place, which I think I'm in currently right now, which is very hard to kind of tap into the next the next year, who are probably people worth 10, 20 mil plus, because they also have their own lives. They also have their own things that they've got on. They've probably got their own connections. They don't need anyone else. So for me to make the connection is not to more so learn, like, how did they get there? What did they do differently? What's the same way you asked me what worked for me, what didn't work for me? It might be very different to that person. So to get to that level, it's harder. You probably do have to go to Louis Vuitton and spend some money to kind of look the part. But
you actually don't. It's quite the opposite.
Yeah. But it's more so, aside from that, it's just to go to events, go to business networking events, putting yourself, just go to more things. I don't mean go to a nightclub, go to Butterfly or something like that. Yeah. It's more go to proper things.
High quality sort of places, definitely.
And it's not being, another interesting thing, on networking is go alone, right? Don't take your friend. Just go alone. Because when you're standing there alone, you look like a weirdo. You have to go talk. They'll just force you naturally to go stand next to someone and just say, hey, buddy, how you doing? Because you don't want to be that one person in the whole freaking room just standing alone.
Absolutely.
Right? I've been in that spot.
It's uncomfortable, yeah.
Yeah, I've been in that spot. And I just look around going, okay, yeah, shit, I'm just going to go talk to this guy. Right? So if you go with your friends and stuff like that, it becomes harder to put yourself out of that comfort zone. So for me, whenever I'm going to an event, I'll just go alone. As uncomfortable as it can be sometimes, you just kind of have to do it.
It's pressuring yourself.
Especially from someone like me who's never been in an environment like that. I've always been in my own space, my own friends, my own thing, never sort of gone out.
One last thing I'd like to ask you about is about with commercial property. So obviously that's probably another step up in terms of with residential. If you have a business and you're a business and it's a brick and mortar facility and it's a fairly successful business, do you feel you should be buying the building?
100%. Yeah, it's no brainer. Why pay the landlord? Right? Because the question is, why not first? Are you scared? Are you scared about yourself? That your business might not be working or might fail in the future or something like that? If that is a concern, then the concern should be reversed by saying, okay, well, how much can I get it? Will someone else rent it? Will another chiropractor rent this building, for example? Or will something be able to fill this spot? Yeah. Of course it was a great building. It's in the main street. Obviously do your research. But yeah, for me, that's very important. Because not only is that a good tax write-off, because hey, you don't necessarily just have to pay your company 100,000 in rent because you are paying yourself. You could pay 200,000 and wipe it off, right? Because it's another company. Yes, you have the tax problem on the other side, but you can fix that too. So because you just pay extra rent. Don't tell the tax office, but why not?
And would you purchase that through your super?
Personally, yes, there's a lot of benefits of having super and stuff like that. I've just not done too much with my super except for having your normal super go in. I'm more of someone right now. The big thing with super is once you invest, say you buy the property inside your super, we use, a lot of people use this word equity to, once the property's grown up in value, you can pull the equity out and buy something else. You can't do that in super. So if you buy a property in super, you cannot refinance and pull the equity out and take it into something else. So for me, for those reasons, probably wouldn't do it. If it's just bought standalone outside through a trust, you let it grow in value, you build, say, 200 grand of equity, use that to buy something else.
Cool. If we look 12 months down the track, what would a successful 24 look like for you?
Big. It's huge this year. So for me, I work, I plan my year very well. I think that has been the number one thing to keep me in focus and to allow me to keep growing. Last year, I had a baby, so my mindset was very driven by that. A lot of the things that I was doing last year was more focused around decluttering, systemizing everything, a lot more things that I could do without growing too much. Because when you grow, you have to put more time, you have to put more money, take more risk. So for me, that year was more just clean things out, things that were not working, to get rid of them, and to focus on setting the right stepping foot for this year. And for me, you know, the planning is important. So for me, I planned that kid. I knew that kid was coming a year before that. So if I didn't know that, then, you know, it kind of throws you off a little bit. And this year for me is just growth, a lot of hard work, a lot of investment into new property. You know, hopefully Flex will open a few more stores this year. So hard work. That's why I said at the start, very scary, because it means a lot more work. My lazy ass from last year to this year has to do a lot more hours. But I can see a very good benefit at the end of the year.
Awesome. Well, Nav, thank you for some great insight on business, investment, and fashion on my end.
Thanks, buddy.
It's been great. Look forward to a big 24 for us both.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks.
Cool.